Bingo. We're on. Welcome,
We're back
everybody.
again.
Welcome, Russ. It's Monday, March 29th, 10 a.m. East Coast time. And here we are with episode 10 of the Neuro Bros Show with my Neuro Bro brain cell number one, Mr. Russ Parker. How's it going, man?
Pretty good, trying to stay out of trouble, but I don't know how successful I'm being at that.
It's like John Lewis said, good trouble is good.
Yeah, it's good trouble. Yeah. Busy.
He was
Speaking of
great.
that,
Yeah.
we got Parkinson's Awareness Month coming up, April.
Yes. Yeah, Parkinson's Awareness Month, man. I'll be posting every day too. World Parkinson Day is April 11th. That's a Sunday. It's going to be a great month because there'll be a lot of information, education, research, inspiration, probably a lot from people all over the world. We know so many people like yourself who are out there fighting this disease and
Got my
doing
fearless shirt on today.
so much. Yeah, I love that, man. It's great. It's great. Omotola and our friend Christoph from Poland and Laura in Mexico and Angeles and Adriana and oh my God, I don't want to leave anyone out, but I'm leaving out like 200 people I know.
Yeah, you know, this was a good year for meeting a lot of new people, I guess, because we've been stuck online a lot. So
yeah,
made a lot of good friends.
and you know, Kabugo Hannington, man, look at what that guy's done in the past couple of years in Uganda.
Amazing.
It's been so amazing. So I'm so pleased. Actually, you don't know this, Russ, or maybe you do. I can't remember if I told you. So in 3 weeks, actually on April 17th, I'm going to take my first, maybe my first trip.
I got one coming up, but
I can't say too much now, but let's just say this. There is a new Parkinson's Association opening up in Oaxaca, Mexico, southwest of, I was going to say Atlantic City. No, Mexico City. And they've got some movers and shakers there working so hard to bring things to people. So in some way or other, I'm going to be participating and helping. And I'll get you more details on that. We can talk privately about that, but they don't have anything around there. So it's nice to know that, you know, there's more awareness, and they're opening during Parkinson's Awareness Month. Jane Castillo was with us. Hello, ¿cómo está?
That's great.
Yeah. So I tell you what, let's do this. I wanted to talk about something real quick. I want to talk about early possible indications of maybe something that might be a clue that down the road somebody may have a movement disorder, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. Okay, and a lot of times what happens is when we look at what I'll share, and then we look back in time, and folks, I didn't make this up. This comes from, it's always, if I'm going to say something like this, it's always research, particularly Dr. Anthony Lang, and particularly my son, whose thesis talks about this, and he writes about it in my book. Lang goes into more detail, only because that was like a really big thing for Lang. But my son, who's PhD, you know, I'm bragging totally, and an MD. And then there's other stuff too, but those are the two main resources. So let's just look at Lang, Anthony Lang, Toronto Western Hospital. There's a YouTube presentation of him, I think it's 3 years ago, 2018, speaking somewhere, I have no idea where. It's a great presentation. And in this presentation, there are a few minutes that he spends on things that you should be mindful of if they apply to you or anyone you know, or anyone, you know, in your family or whatever, to be starting that thought process of, oh, okay, wait a minute, might this be the first sign of something that in 10 years from now, I'll have a tremor, or 10 years from now, I'll have reduced sense of smell. And then maybe a few years from then, a tremor, or, you know, whatever. Because you got motor symptoms of Parkinson's, There are 5 technically. I guess I can just mention them. We've got rigidity. Well, tremor is the number one, let's say, noticeable symptom for an outsider. Resting tremor, tremor of a resting limb. Akinesia, difficulty getting started. Like, you want to go, you want to walk, but you can't get that first step easily. Bradykinesia, slowness of movement, rigidity, stiffness, and postural instability, which is pretty much the one mostly responsible for falling more than the other ones. Okay, so we have that. Then we have non-motor symptoms. Well, that's like a long, long list. I mean, everyone's affected differently, whether it's motor or not. I know some people with Parkinson's for 30 years never had a tremor, but they have Pisa-Tower syndrome. And when they lean like this is their new center of gravity. So if they sit like this, they get all dizzy and they think they're sideways and they fall over. Not a common symptom, but I've seen it plenty of times. We also have, insomnia, the loss of sense of smell. We have anxiety, we have depression, but a lot of people have that. We have
constipation.
Thank you. So many different symptoms, but
incontinence.
Yep. Yep. And for some reason, my mind is drawing a blank on the non-motor symptoms. I don't know why.
Well, then there's all the depressive, depression, anxiety, and all those mental things.
So for the early symptoms, one of the things that Lang says, and my son talks about it too, people who act out their dreams in any way, shape, or form, whether it's a little bit of movement or a lot of movement. And I've woken myself up many times, especially since COVID. I don't know what's going on. And these post-COVID things for me are very disturbing and mystifying. But bottom line is, the other night, right here, I hit my hand on the headboard. And I have a little bruise right here. Not bad, but you can kind of see a discoloration. It's like, geez, man. But I do this all the time. I'll find myself kicking myself or just kicking. And I don't mean to turn this like to talk about me, but bottom line is, when Lang looks at the research on people who act out their dreams. So let's talk about, what does that mean? Why is it important? Well, acting out your dreams is not supposed to happen if you're sleeping, you're in good health and your brain is functioning right, because you're supposed to be in a state of, you're supposed to be in an atonic state. So there's no tone. Like, you're not supposed to be flexing, and it's actually technically sleep, or being atonic, is considered a state of partial paralysis. You're supposed to be that way when you're asleep. Your body is designed like this. And then the mechanisms that keep going are your heart and your lungs breathing, because you have to stay alive, right? So your body takes care, your brain takes care of that on its own. But when you, I got a new game on Oculus yesterday. Jane, you might like this. It's called The Climb. It's really freaking cool. I just need a new game, so I got it. And I find myself last night dreaming about the climb. It's climbing, and the hands look real in the thing. And you're controlling them, and you're climbing up these things, and I'm jumping to the next one. And that's what I was doing last night in my dream. And then boom. So you're not supposed to be acting out the dreams. And so if I just take this and say, make a long story short, because Lang goes on for like an hour about this, and their research on this, 100% of the people they tracked who acted out their dreams in this particular research phase, which took decades, all of them ended up with Parkinson's. There wasn't like one that didn't. All of them ended up having Parkinson's. It might have taken 30 years. He even talks about how even 50 years before, you could be 5 years old and acting out your dreams in your bed. Well, maybe 40 years later, and just randomly choosing numbers. Yeah, Jane, you're going to want to check that out. It's a really good game. The Climb 2 is another one. So I just started with The Climb. And they have a bundle package for the 2 games. Sorry, I'm being distracted. But, I don't say that to scare anybody, but if you're acting out your dreams, hopefully you are aware of it. And if you're not and somebody's sleeping next to you, maybe they can let you know, because you want to be mindful of this. Doesn't mean you're doomed and gloomed. No, not at all. Because there are always things you can do to improve brain health through diet and exercise and cognition games and this and that. And then work towards, developing the hormones, the BDNF and this and that, and having that on a regular basis to hopefully delay the disease onset or maybe eliminate it altogether. Which is kind of the same thing if you have, this is a different subject, but as Dr. Dale Bredesen said, I don't have his book here. There's 2 books downstairs, The End of Alzheimer's, and then The End of Alzheimer's program came out last August, and I interviewed him in January. It's on my karlsterling.net, 150 something expert interviews. He talks about how the APOE4 gene, we all have a copy of it, but how many copies do you have? And if you have like 2, you're maybe 15% more. Okay, Jan, I'll address that in a minute. You're like something like, I'm pulling numbers out of the air, but I think they're fairly accurate, like 15% more likely to have Alzheimer's. You have 3, you're like 40 something or 50% more likely to have Alzheimer's. You have 4 copies, you're 85, 90%. So at some point here in the near future, because there's Alzheimer's that runs in my mother's side of the family, I'm going to have that test for APOE4 because I'd like to know how many copies I have. Because there are things like he says you can do nutrition and exercise primarily, and then using your brain. My new signature in the emails is keep moving, keep learning. You got to use the body, got to use the brain. So acting out the dreams is one of the things that's a very, 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 very early possible indicator of something that may be coming your way in your brain disease-wise down the road. Constipation is another one, but constipation is like rampant. So
yeah, it's very common.
Get unconstipated however you can, folks. Just do it, because that shit literally ain't good for you. It's toxins, and it gets reabsorbed in the body. And as Bredesen says, as John Rady says, who wrote this book, I mean, all these people, we know that these diseases can live in our gut for 10, 15, 20, maybe 30 years. And there is the vagus nerve connection. And that's what Stanford is saying. And Dr. Andrew Huberman, he really goes into detail that on that in a recent episode on his podcast. Yeah.
I got a book now. I'm reading this.
Oh, I have that one. That's a great book.
Accessing the healing power of the vagus.
Yeah. And so, there are things like if you're drinking a lot, for example, and your liver enzymes are messed up and your liver's messed up, well, vagus nerve innervates down there too. So, I mean, that can actually go up to the brain and destroy a lot of stuff and it can cause a problem. And really, a lot of it just has to do with your genetics and your genetic predisposition. I had an aunt great aunt. I never forgot. I mean, she was the coolest lady in the world. She lived to be 97 years old, Aunt Emma. Emma rolled her own cigarettes and smoked like a chimney for probably 70 years. And she did not die of lung cancer. So I'm guessing she was not predisposed to genetic mutation into cancer of any kind. She just died from being old. So, but let's take another person like Christopher Reeve's wife, who died young from lung cancer. She never smoked a cigarette in her life. I mean, what the heck? What environment was she in where some probably genetic mutation happened and boom, now you have cancer, lung cancer? Well, there's so much we don't know, but we also know that all of us can do something to improve our health. I have my issues with, I won't say depression per se. I really haven't felt good today, especially yesterday. I felt awful. And today is just so, honestly, just, it's good to be here, but getting moving, man. I don't feel like moving, but I'm going to move because I already moved with one of my clients. And like, I started to feel better. I'm telling you, it works. It's like it saves me half the time, but I got to get my ass off the couch and move. So all these things, I just want to talk about constipation. It's a big one. Get unconstipated. Go get colonics. Just do something. Take something healthy to get that stuff out of you and stay unconstipated if at all possible. Seek medical advice. Don't take what I say as the gospel, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not responsible for anyone's health. Everyone's responsible for their own. But know that these things are real and they're rampant, constipation, in our society. And I'm almost done with my rant. If you're acting out your dreams, don't take it lightly. I'm not here to scare you, but be mindful of it. Probably just start exercising. Maybe eat a little bit healthier, because that in alone is going to help you. Then you get Dr. Laura Mishley. I bet she can probably give you some advice too, because she's the one on this gut health stuff and all that. She's got that shit down, and you
All
know
the
her.
lifestyle stuff. She's I always say my two main gurus are on the exercise neuro rehab end, it's Karl and Dr. Laurie Mishley is on lifestyle. If you haven't heard her name, she's the expert on lifestyle, diet, all those type of things.
Yeah, she's a mover and shaker out
whether
there.
or not to take medication, and a lot of things.
Yeah, so there are other things too, but those are the primary two. Loss of sense of smell can come like maybe even 10 years or maybe more before anyone exhibits any kind of other symptom that's non-motor, like asymmetrical arm swing, lack of arm swing on one side. That's pretty common. Shuffly gait before you have a tremor, if you ever get one. Some people don't. But be mindful of what you're feeling, and we can move on. I actually wanted to talk about, what did you just say, Russ? You just said something about
We were
Laura
just talking about
and
Dr. Mishley.
Well,
I don't know what else.
let's Jan Heller, thanks for joining us. It's always good to see you. Wish I could get out. I want to see the Packard plant. I want to see what they're doing with that. Don't tell me about games. Already addicted, especially Mahong. Oh, I don't know that one. Is that an Oculus game? Because I'm doing this VR Oculus thing that's kicking my ass. But I'll tell you, I've been using it with some clients. I used it with a lady, Irene, the other day. She's 80 years old, lives with Parkinson's, moves very well. She's a fighter. She's inspiring me. And she's on Oculus kicking butt. Helen is here. Hey, our friend, your friend.
Oh, yeah.
Helen Martins. Hey, Helen, welcome.
Yeah, actually, she's actually working with a fellow physical therapist, a fellow Long Islander who's a physical therapist on Long Island. So I was glad I was able to make that connection with her. I'm working on a project actually to create a consortium of fitness and health professionals to collaborate together on Long Island. But anyway,
beautiful.
I have something to add to your theme. You were talking about, clearing it with another professional. And I actually briefly, before we went on, I mentioned this thought to you. I had a few thoughts. I always have these thoughts coming to me early in the morning, and they either end up being poems or quotes. But I came up with some thoughts on going it on your own, which this comes out of that Parkinson's is very misunderstood. And in the medical community, a lot of times you get a diagnosis and then the only action you get is medication. So people decide that they're going to completely go it on their own, which, it's great to take ownership, but I just have these thoughts on going it on your own. And this is what my stream of consciousness on it. So, you may have hundreds of experiences and learn hundreds of things, but consider the value of a highly effective practitioner who has experience treating hundreds of patients who have gone through hundreds of experiences. They also add value by keeping up to date with research, new therapies, new theories, interacting with other top health professionals who do the same. And they also, when they observe you, they also have the experience of observation. You only have self-observation, and you don't have all those hundreds of other people to compare it to. So your point is valid. A lot of people out there who are going it on their own, that there are a lot of people maybe in the medical community that are frustrating to work with because they don't think outside the box. They just give you medication. But if there are plenty of competent, experienced, effective practitioners out there in the health field. And if you know about them, you should make those, definitely make those connections. There's a lot that they could offer that you can't.
Extremely valid points, and I agree with you more than ever. I always would have agreed, but our whole program that we teach came from a few concepts that I came up with myself, and then I went out and taught. First workshop, Portland, Oregon. And I immediately was overwhelmed with how much information I got from people. I couldn't even believe it. And I have been teaching for Dr. Emily anyways, so but her course is so unique that I didn't get as much from people. I also didn't have patients there. Well, we have like Parkinson's, I say patients, people with Parkinson's at these workshops, and their experience and their caregivers and then the other professionals that come in. And it ain't about me, it's about we can all help each other. And that includes, and I know what I was thinking of earlier that I forgot, is what you said, definitely including the medical world in this too, because while there's a lot lacking in time and attention, it's still, our doctors are necessary, our neurologists are necessary, our physios many times are, especially if there's something they have to do that is out of our scope of practice as trainers. But medications and exercise can complement each other, especially exercise complementing the medications to make them get in the body and be more effective and stay longer. So don't going it alone is, I can applaud people for the effort until they work against themselves. Like you said it, you nailed it, Russ. Bring in all the
Leverage
resources.
everything at your disposal, and don't assume that certain things aren't at your disposal until you've done some poking around yourself. Don't just start reading books and then stay in your own little world. And even just learning from other friends, I'm saying is not enough too. I know people don't totally go on their own. They get on Facebook groups and things like that. But still, I think if you could find a good team, build your team of professionals and friends and support structure. It's all important. Caregivers are important too. It's important that they learn and help you. And it's all one big group, one team of people that affect you and help you in all different ways. The more the merrier, as long as they're competent and not causing more damage than good.
Dr. Google can be a very bad thing, because Dr. Google can say things that aren't accurate. Maybe Google Scholar might be a better idea, or just PubMed. But go to the professionals, seek out the best. I only had one more thing I wanted to say, Russ, and I'll just say it real quick. Folks, don't take COVID lightly. I think anyone watching probably hasn't. Our people seem to be pretty open. I'm not going to go off on this. Don't take it lightly, though. I'm so glad there's a vaccine. I get my second dose today. There's some anti-vaxxers out there. But I will say this, if you're worried about being tracked, you gave up your rights a long time ago when you got a smartphone. You're being tracked. But they're not tracking you with the vaccine. There's no RFID mini chip in there. And if you really wonder about that, just ask my son. He's the one who's done research on all this with his friend who works next door in Atlanta at the CDC. But the other thing too is you're not going to die from it. People die from stuff though. So, COVID isn't the cause of death a lot of times, but COVID can be the thing that brought on some other issue that caused somebody health problems. So I guess what I'm saying is still be safe. We're not there yet. Might be another good, Jance. You got number 2. Yeah, good. And you get yours on the 15th. I get mine today. My entire family has it already, number 2. So we're good. A lot of my clients do too. So that's good. But we're not there yet. We're not totally there yet. And there are long haulers like me. Still think I'm probably dealing with some issues, but I'm not going to complain about it. Just got to fight through it. But it ain't no joke, folks. It's not a joke. It's real, and we'll get through it because we always get through stuff. That's what we do. We're people, we're humans, and we want to live, so we will. But be careful and respectful of others, even though I'm sick of wearing a mask, and you are too, I'm sure. It sucks, but dying sucks worse. Anyways, okay, that's it. Russ,
Yeah.
what do you got?
Well,
You got
we've
stuff up your
been
sleeve
going
today.
through some corrective exercise stuff, working our way up from the feet up. Did a little bit on the knee, and maybe we'll do a little bit on the hip today. I had a couple more thoughts. I think, corrective exercise is tied into muscle imbalance and could be tied into discomfort and pain. So I'd like to weave in corrective exercise is kind of like a regimented type of thing, although there are gray areas where sometimes where you're feeling the problem is not where not where you should go address. That's true, but I want to weave in a little bit pain management science too, and how your brain works and gets signals about pain and also sends signals out about pain. Clearing up the confusion on that a little bit too, and some theories there. Some of the theories are, a lot of them are backed in research. Some of them, some health practitioners question a little bit, like the polyvagal theory. Some health practitioners
So I'm going to jump in
don't
and just say,
believe.
for those who are watching, know that pain is one of the most, let's say, unrecognized symptom. I don't know if I want to call it a symptom. In Parkinson's, many times people have pain and it is not recognized and not treated. So it's what Russ is going to tell you is highly relevant in how to manage some of that. And he lives with Parkinson's, so he would know.
Well, one of the things I would like to say, one point of confusion, I think, is the phrase, "it's all in your mind." I think it's true that anxiety, depression, trauma, all those things could eventually end up in pain. But I think where the thought process on that kind of goes awry is sometimes people think that those thoughts and those feelings trigger the pain directly. And from what I've been reading and understand, is that ultimately it's still a physiological process, whether it's coming from the brain or some other system, that is going to trigger the pain. So one obvious one is if you get an injury, that's easy for anybody to understand. You stub your toe, the source of the pain is your toe. Where you're feeling your pain is your toe. To treat your toe. Okay, that's obvious. But what about when you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden you say, I didn't do anything, but my back is killing, my knee is killing me, my pinky is hurting or whatever. Where does that come from? And then these things, keep cropping up, and then you hear the phrase, sometimes some people might say, well, we've taken blood tests, x-rays, this and that, don't see anything. It must be in your mind. But I think the brain, I think it could be in your brain could be triggering it, because anxiety, what it could happen is anxiety and things like that could drive your whole fight or flight response. And then what you get is inflammation. Now, inflammation is something that, some medical and health professionals are not quite on board with. Why? Because it doesn't have a disease name, like a chronic disease name, like fibromyalgia or arthritis. Those are like a couple of traditional things that are associated with pain. So if somebody's having unexplained pain, you may not get anywhere with a health practitioner, or although you might have back pain and no slip disc or anything or like that may show up in an X-ray, you'll keep being told that have back massages and go to physical therapy, and you'll keep having the pain. And that's because what happens in your brain sometimes is, like I said, the stub toe is an obvious thing. You get that signal, it gets sent up to the brain, that was the source of the pain. But sometimes what happens is there's all sorts of stuff going on in your body. You're inflamed. There's a whole ton of systems that interact with each other. They all depend on each other. And a lot of this information we're getting from our friend, Dr. Perry Nicholson, your close friend,
Mhm.
who his website is Stop Chasing Pain, and he teaches a lot of cool classes on the lymphatic system is a big thing with him. But anyway, a lot of times what happens is your body is getting all these, these messages about things going on in these systems, and sometimes it just reacts. Your brain just reacts by sending out a pain signal somewhere. You actually can't figure out where the pain's coming from. That's why Dr. Perry, sometimes his solution is, you get some inflammation in your lymphatic system. The solution to back pain may be to massage your sternum, which is, or something like that, because it's all interconnected, and your brain just sometimes sends out signal. Pain is a way of protecting your body. So I guess the brain sometimes feels like, hey, I got to send out a signal somewhere to say, protect yourself, guard yourself. And that's why sometimes you get pain in a place and it's not really, there's not really anything physically going on in that area, whether it's your back or other areas. And that's why people keep going through the same traditional treatments and they keep having pain.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I was just trying to look something up here, but I can't find it.
which makes the case for holistic medicine, by the way. Not to get on my soapbox, but there's folks out there that are not quite, who have PD, who aren't quite on board with the dietary changes and the exercise and things like that. A lot of times you're having pain because you have inflammation from either eating junk food or being sedentary. Both of those things cause inflammation. So if the sooner you address those, the better you'll feel, no matter whether you have Parkinson's or not.
My son was here last week and he saw me sitting on the couch, which I love to do. He knows I move a fair amount, but he looks at me and he says, Dad, sitting equals cancer. It's just a thing, doesn't mean if you sit a lot, you're going to get cancer, but it doesn't mean you're going to maybe do a sedentary lifestyle is definitely not desirable. I was feeling pretty crappy that day and I just didn't feel like moving. So I just somehow that sunk in my head, probably because of the look he had on his face. But you're right. How many people, I see it all the time. I feel it all the time too. And I sit for a certain amount of time, like even like sometimes a half hour, 45 minutes, hour. I'm sitting just because it works best in this situation until I figure out something else. I stand up, I'm stiff. I've been in a flexed position. My hip flexors are, whatever. And it's not comfortable. It's not bad pain. It's just, but sitting all the time, that can cause pain for sure.
Yeah, and you just reminded me of something, and I read this, that people think of, like when we explain how sitting is bad, what you just did, Karl, was explained it in a physical sense, and that's true. I get that. I sit too much and my hip flexors get tight, so that's a physical thing. But actually sitting, compared to not sitting, also releases less dopamine into your system.
Totally.
So that is very important for, as we all know, us people with Parkinson's, that is very important for us. So consider that as well. So when you're in pain, and lack of dopamine also causes pain too. The people who have rigidity could attest to that. When their medication is on, they have less pain because they're less rigid and everything is not, all the muscles aren't pulling on your joints in ways to have sharp pain. So that's another strong consideration too. And people don't want to move because they're having pain. It's kind of like a catch-22, but the movement is actually what could get them out of pain. just get moving around, get the blood circulating, get your lymph flowing,
Yeah.
and all that.
Speaking of that, Russ, I want to mention a book. I haven't updated my website with what I'm reading lately. This is one of the best books I have ever read. And I learned about it through Huberman. He wishes he wrote the book. But it's written by Daniel Lieberman, who I'm trying to get on this interview series, and we're communicating. But bottom line is, it's called The Molecule of More.
Oh, right.
It is all about the power of dopamine. It is one of the best books I have ever read, and it explains some of my personality, or these weird quirks that I have. Actually, some of them are almost like addictive tendencies. One of the reasons I never tried like drug, I was around cocaine all the time when I was in bands. Never tried it. I knew if I tried it, I would love it, and I would probably die. So, food can be an addiction. I'll admit that. I find myself still eating from emotion, or something tastes so good, I just want a little bit more of that taste, but I don't need it because I'm not hungry. Like I made some pasta sauce last week, was just out of sight, man. It was so good. But then I ate not a whole lot too much, but I definitely ate too much. And it lasted 3 nights. So I had pasta for 3 nights. It was really good. But addictive tendencies, the driver, dopamine is a driver. If I want to get up and go over and get a cup of coffee, dopamine gets me there. And then the job is done, right? Now serotonin, oxytocin, they kick in when you drink your coffee because it's like the happy chemicals. Dopamine gets you to where you're going. It's a driver. Lack of dopamine can create the lack of wanting, and not the word, I can't find lack of will to do things or move or work towards a goal, which could even just be getting up off the couch. The Molecule of More, Daniel Lieberman, is freaking awesome. And if a book's not in your budget right now, folks, I get it. A lot of people out there are hurting for money. Go on YouTube, type in The Molecule of More. He's been on a lot of podcasts, a lot of interviews. You'll get the information just by going to YouTube. It's really good.
Sounds great. Yeah,
and he talks about Parkinson's
identify as many fun things as you can and pick from a list. I didn't do much of exercising yesterday, but I was working on a project for Parkinson's Awareness Month.
Yeah,
I'm doing like a little music thing. You guys will see, but I gave Karl a little preview of it. So I was practicing it last night, and I'm not much of a singer, but I was singing. But I decided when I did it, I was just by myself, and I was being like really animated, like I was like a rock star singing into the microphone, and I was having fun with it. I just kept re-recording the song, and just dancing around singing, and before I knew it, I was past the time for my medication, and I was still feeling okay. So I was having fun with it.
Good. Yeah. Fun is another thing. There's so much up here. Dr. Deepak Chopra. I remember working out at the gym one day. This is like 20 years ago. And I had one of his books on audio when, CDs were how they came out. And I somehow got it into an MP3 player, maybe. I don't even know. It wasn't a phone, but I was listening to it at the gym. And holy crap, man. He was saying how the brain is our human pharmacy, and we have the chemicals we need almost all the time. We can figure out how to make the neuromodulators, the neurochemicals, the hormones, the things that will help us. We can. Oh, 1 second here. I just gotta.
Yeah, our friend Gavin is good at that too. He does a lot of his activities is fun stuff. He's always enjoyed sports movements and things like that.
Yeah, it's just really.
Life.
I'm sorry. I thought I had a question here about this. I do not. Okay, so I think that's one of the things I like learning about the most is how to. Right now, there's a podcast that just came out from Huberman talking about emotions, and I think the whole month has been about emotions, or maybe the next month is. I'm a little behind on working on studying his stuff, but There's so much we can do for ourselves without medications. And of course, if you need meds, then you need meds. But I'm not saying we don't need them and they're irrelevant, but there's a lot we can do to manage our own emotional state. And so this is a constant learning curve for me. Russ, do you want to, because we have like 20 minutes left, do you
Yeah,
want to
the
do some
corrective
corrective stuff?
exercise.
I want to make sure you have time for the corrective stuff. And
Yeah, we're gonna go through the hip. You ready?
yeah, and I'm going to make you big. I've got to run out and get more water, but take it over, my friend.
Okay.
You're on. I'm going to
Okay,
mute over
everybody.
here.
The hips. Okay, these are the main, your hip musculature, especially your glute max. You have butt cheeks there. Are your main drivers in walking, and also have your hip musculature has a lot to do with stability too. Right in the center of your body, I consider we consider the hip. The movement specialists consider the whole lumbo-pelvic hip complex really like is part of your core too. It's in the center of your body, so it affects things in both directions. It's responsible for flexing your hip, extending your hip, which is backwards, outward rotation, inward rotation, abduction, which is pushing out to the side, adduction, which is pulling in. So there's a lot of actions going on there. Rotational type things. Well, I talked about internal and external rotation. So so I was talking about stability as well. So you have the issue of posture. So I'm just going to exaggerate my pelvis tip backwards. And when we think of aligning our pelvis, our hip, think of this whole pelvic hip complex as a bucket. So I have a bucket here. Right, this is my bucket around here. And if I exaggerate one way or the other, I'm going to stick my butt out and arch my back. So now the water is pouring out of the bucket in front. So I tuck my cheeks under just to straighten up, just to get to neutral. Now no water is pouring out. And then you could be going the other way too, tilting like this, and then the bucket is, the water is pouring out the back. So you just stand there and just exaggerate going forward a little bit and backwards with your pelvis, and then coming to neutral. And let's do this because let's lean forward, because that's a common compensation with people with Parkinson's, this forward tilt, especially when your medication wears off. I know I get this sometimes. I get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and I'm standing up to go to pee, and sometimes I catch myself leaning forward. So purposely lean forward like this. Now try to tighten your glute muscles and feel it pull you upright. See if you could feel that. Just tilt forward just a little bit, tighten up your glute muscles. And of course, your upper body helps your posture as well too. So you want to try to get your shoulder blades back. So just do that, just to get an idea of feeling the stability there. So often you have a problem with your hip flexors, which is what makes your hips come up like this, being too tight. And that's, as Karl mentioned before, he was talking about sitting. That comes from sitting a lot. And when you sit on your butt, your butt gets flaccid and weak. So then you lose this power to push off backwards. So it's just important in general. I mean, you could go through an assessment with a physical therapist or a trainer trained in corrective exercise. But I would say just about everybody could stand to strengthen their gluteal muscles. So one great exercise for stability, just in general, and alignment is the it's called the quadruped, and some people call it the bird dog. But this is an exercise. I'll be getting down on all fours, but I can show you ways to extend your hip, standing up as well too. But I think the quadruped is, and Karl, you could chime in too on your favorite exercise in that hip complex. But That's one of my favorites because you get a little bit of, you get the hip extension, so you tighten up your glutes. If you're doing the alternate arm leg thing where you have one arm out and one leg back in the air, you have an anti-rotational force going, and you're strengthening your core. So there's a good stability exercise, as well as bridges are too for your glutes.
I have well, sorry folks, I'm not in a position to show you.
That's okay. Do you have a favorite glute activation exercise by any chance?
Oh, favorite? I like I think my very, very favorite one, because it really, really gets me, is when I am in a quadruped position, and then I'll extend my right leg, so right glute. Talking glute max, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because glute med, I have a thing I like too, but I really like it when I'm in a quadruped position, so like crawling position or bird dog position. But I'm not doing the bird dog, although you could. But I specifically focusing on that right glute. If I'm doing right side and left for left, point the leg back. I like to point the toe away from me, and then I just draw like an arc with pretend that's my big toe, my index finger. All right, I'm drawing this arc. I'm going slow, and for me, that is the best glute max activation to just get it fired right up.
Yeah,
Another one is bridges, but I don't get, I know how to do bridges and I know how to position myself. And I think the only way I feel like I'm firing it up is if I put like 30 pounds on my belly on the belt line and do a single leg bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And drive through the heel, not the whole foot. I drive only through the heel because that just totally fires up that glute. But I get more out of the drawing the arc. Yeah. Otherwise, I've had people do something like this. You should be able to see me here. I can show you this. Don't look at my belly, folks. I'm sucking it in. So you're gonna get to see my butt now. Here we go. There's my right butt. This isn't the optimal position, but just extending back. I like to point the toe. You can't see me, but
I'll do it on got a little bit more room here, so I could do it on mine. So you're just doing
Russ's butt looks better than mine.
You're just doing an extension, right?
Yeah, that's it.
So and then point the toe.
Yeah, I like to point the toe.
And then this is good. We should try to give options for people, who maybe can't get down on the ground, and then come back and go again. And you could even do a short pulses too. Point the toe. So that's called triple extension, which is what happens when you're walking. So you're extending in 3 joints. You're extending your hip, the knee is straightened out, and then the toe is also extended in a what's called plantar flexion. And then that's the exact same thing what happens when you push off, when you walk. So that's standing. And then the one Karl was talking about, and I'll add in, for bonus points, we'll add in the core part, the quadruped at the end, but the hand thing I'll add in after, but I'll do it without. So same thing we were just doing, but you point your toe.
That's exactly it.
And alignment on a lot of exercise, just a general tip, and that general exercise tip for you all is a lot of times, like in a particular exercise like that, when you're in like a plank type position, is you should always strive to have alignment of your what's called your kinetic checkpoints. So in this case, your neck, your shoulder, your hip, your knee, and your ankle are all in a straight line. Then there's other exercises, obviously, where you're not always in a straight line. You're doing squats and things like that. But there's usually 2 or 3 joints that are aligned. So even when you're doing a squat, maybe bend at the knees and the waist a little bit, but then still your hip and your shoulder and your neck should be in line. So
yes.
It's
And
just good.
that people get things that, actually, I just want to say hello to some folks because I really appreciate people joining us, and we're starting to pick up a little momentum in different parts of the world, like Germany and Poland and Mexico. Laura and I have been doing a thing, which we've gotten a lot of nice feedback. We got a great feedback with this, Russ. I just want to tell you. So Jane is with us. Thank you. You and I will be talking later. Jan, Silvia Gabriela, hola mi amiga. Karina in Bolivia. Karina in Bolivia, hola, ¿cómo está? I know Laura was going to come on and watch. So Laura, when you come on, hola. She's, I think, traveling today. Actually, I think today she sees Angeles. She's going to go down and there. That'd be cool. There were some others and I lost them, but welcome everybody. I appreciate you watching. We're here to help you. If you have any questions, type them in the comment box. And Helen, you're the only one with us on Zoom, but if you have any questions, type them in the chat box. Yeah, I like that. So when you're in the quadruped and you're lifting the leg up, right? I mean, I tell people just do what works for you, how you feel it the most. I personally like to draw the arc with my toe, point the big toe away and pretend there's like a paintbrush on the end and I'm drawing an arc.
Like this?
I'm just going like this. Back and forth. Yep, back and forth, nice and slow, even slower than that. Painfully slow. Now, some people get more out of it if they just go straight up and down. That's totally cool. Some people like the donkey kicks. So you flex at the knee and then you kick up to the ceiling with your heel. Hey, whatever fires up your glute, that's the thing to do. And
good point about going slow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the, sorry folks, if you're NASM, it's one of the few things I take from NASM, and I they're gonna kill me. They already don't like me. Because I think that there's a lot more we can be doing. But that is one of the things, that slow thing, I gotta say, they're on the money. Slower activates better.
Also, variety of movement, moving in different ways is important, especially for people with Parkinson's. So one area I'd like to study is that, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Feldenkrais or something like that.
Feldenkrais.
Feldenkrais. Yeah. Okay.
Oh man, I'd love to do that with you, because all my friends, Ethan, somebody, and MJ Adamczyk, and Dr. Steve Capo and Perry, they're all like, Feldenkrais, man, we got to do this.
Yeah, because I started playing with it. I didn't study the particular methodologies from the source, just the general. I just started playing with the general concept of moving slower, and you really feel a difference. So the one exercise I did it with, that you could try this if you folks know this exercise. If not, you're learning it now. If you do like an egg roll.
Oh, I love the egg rolls.
Your core and torso, where you're rolling.
And I love egg rolls, especially the ones that.
But when you come up slow.
Slow.
And down, let it down slow. You really feel the difference, as opposed to doing this. This is just momentum.
Yeah, that's more like a windshield wiper. Russ, are you keeping your shoulder blades connected to the ground on that? I'm just curious.
I probably wasn't being as conscious of it as I should have. But I try to put my arms out. I try to keep them down.
Yeah. The only reason I ask is that's one of the ones I learned in New York from somebody, I don't know, probably Rick Ritchie or Aaron Drogoseski. And I can't remember, you got the palms, I think palms are down, shoulder blades are connected to the ground. And then you do that thing, you swing the knees together. You keep them like together and then go. Don't let the arm come up, the shoulder blades come off the ground, because what we're looking to do is kind of a spinal flexibility, thoracic flexibility. For me, it's a freaking killer. But I've actually been doing it recently, and I've been doing it with some of my people, and it's been a good one.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. I don't know if we're gonna get, if we could go like a few minutes after. I guess we could get to the release. Actually, when we do the corrective stuff, usually we do the release and the stretch, which I didn't do on the hip yet. I'd like to get to that if we could. Or some
I can go like 10 minutes, and then I've got a what did they say? Bump. I have to bump out. Is that the street talk? I got a bump.
Okay.
10 minutes, I got a bump out, man, from a shot.
So we actually touched on this last week, where I talked about how when one muscle gets overly tight constantly, it may not, stretching it all the time may not be the solution, like your hamstring. It could just be that you're overusing your hamstring and it keeps getting tight because your glutes aren't strong enough. So, but one reason sometimes your glutes aren't strong enough, not just because they're just weak because you haven't worked them out, is because that another concept called reciprocal inhibition is happening, where we talked about, again, the tight hips. When your muscles are tight on one side, a lot of times it weakens the other side. That's because you can only have one. When one side flexes, the other side has to relax to get good movement. So if you're already tight in the hips, your body is just saying to itself, that's my natural state, and it has trouble firing up the glutes. So a little bit of a anecdotal story on this is corrective exercise. We normally, do the stretching, do the releasing, like the foam rolling, and the strengthening. But sometimes you could even see benefits without like any strengthening, depending on what activities you're involved in too. So I've been into running, and it's happened, quite a few years back now, before Parkinson, so over 5 years ago. But at the time I was, pretty active. I was doing several distance workouts, and I was doing a track workout every week, with sprinting, like 400 meters, a bunch of 400 meters or 200 meters, and, all different distances and rest intervals and everything. So I was doing sprint intervals, and I had learned that my hip flexors were tight. So I was really being adamant about releasing and stretching my hip flexors. And when I finally hit that point where I felt like really, where I really freed things up, that ensuing track workout afterwards, my buttocks muscles were so on fire. I never experienced anything like that in my life. It was like they got woken up, and I felt really powerful running. And then afterwards, I really was reminded that I was really working those muscles. I really felt it. So that concept really got driven home by that experience. Just freeing up the muscles on the front end, loosening them up, helped me be able to activate the muscles on the back end. Just running. And in the case of people who walk, it would help there as well.
Absolutely.
So I could do, there's several, I might carry over the hip into next week, but I'll go over one release and one stretch for the hip.
While you get ready for that, I want to interject and say that Jan Heller was looking for the book. Jan and everybody, I just posted a comment, which includes a link to Amazon for that book called The Molecule of More, which is available in probably all 3 formats that everything's available in, even my book. Hey, by the way, I might as well talk about it. I wrote a book. It's called This, and it's available through me for a little bit less money, and you get a copy of my CD if you buy it. Called Parkinson's Regeneration Training. We have lots of doctors contributing to this one. Russ wrote in this one. It's also available in Espanol if you go to parkinsonsregenerationtraining.com or neuromotortraining.com. Either one goes to the same place. You can buy it from me. Although if you're out of the United States, then it won't be cheaper. Amazon will be a better deal. It's available in Spanish as well. And the Spanish copy has a chapter on nutrition in it. My next book coming out in less than 2 weeks has the chapter in English coming out in it. So that's available on Kindle, through Amazon Kindle. It's also available on Audible. Mine, I'm talking about my book, but also this Molecule of More, that is also available in Kindle and paperback and Audible. And you should buy both books. And my next book's going to cost half the price of the first one, just so you know, because it's half the size, but has more information. All right, take it away, Russ, after my shameful self-promotion.
No problem. Real quick progression thing on foam rolling. Some people can take the pain of foam rolling even on, I'm going to demonstrate how to do this on one leg, but even putting 2 thighs across the foam roller might be even too painful. So if that's the case, if you have 2 foam rollers, you could even relieve more pain by actually using 2 foam rollers and laying across that. So just some real quick. So I'm
Oh, good idea. I
some
forgot
real
about
quick
that.
progressions. If you can't, you should work your way up on that. You shouldn't be beating yourself up too much. So this is the release for the quad, which is a hip flexor. I'm going to do a one-legged version of this, but like I said, you could go with 2 legs on it, and you could put a little bit more focus on one by just kind of leaning. But I'm going to completely drop one leg off of the roller so I get more pressure. You can start at the knee or the hip, but you're going to work your way up between the knee and the hip till you find a spot that kind of hurts. If it hurts a decent amount, then you could just hold it for 30 to 90 seconds. If you want to accelerate the release and you could take the pain, you flex the knee and straighten it.
Yeah, that dynamic release is quite intense sometimes.
And you just do a few spots.
I'm going to add in something I used to teach when I taught for Brent Brookbush. When you're doing this stuff, if the area you're on numbs, tingles, or pulses, get off of it, because if it numbs or tingles, you're on a nerve. If it pulses, you're on a blood supply. Otherwise, pain for the sake of pain won't help you on this, but discomfort is to be expected, but the results can be phenomenal.
Yeah, and also, I guess we have to be mindful about pointing out contraindications too. So if you have certain circulatory problems because of diabetes and things like that, you also might have to be careful with that. So that's basically how you do the foam rolling on the hip.
I'm glad you said that, and I'm going to jump in for another second. I don't know why I forgot. I cannot foam roll my left leg anywhere because of the blood clots. And
yeah,
I still have blood clots. I still have them below the knee. They're very, very small. Probably a lot of us have them, but I mean, now I know I do. And then my popliteal vein rerouted itself with, fortunately, a kick-ass bypass vein that's actually given more vein flow back to the heart than the original. But in case there's something stuck and you're rolling and it comes loose and you shoot a clot in your lung or your brain, no bueno. So if you've had any kind of blood clotting, and then the diabetes thing too, you got to be careful. If you have any questions on it, you can message Russ or me, and we can help direct you. And if we don't know the answer, we know who can. And be Brent Brookbush. He knows everything.
Right. But also that brings home the point again about working, with your medical professional on certain things. So if you're doing any sort of treatment, self-treatment, it's probably, it's a good idea to, especially if you have other comorbidities with your Parkinson's or whatever. If you have anything going on with your circulation or nerves and stuff like that, like Karl said, just say, well, I'm doing this, procedure that puts pressure on certain areas. Is that okay? Any thing I should worry about, and the doctor.
Another thing that I want to check out, Russ, and I was really poo-pooing it 5-6 years ago, is the melt method. And I'll tell you why. It was so ingrained into me that you had to do it the way we were taught in our certifications, that you had to release that way. Well, foam melt's not even about myofascial release so much. It's much more about increasing fluid dynamics in the fascia.
Right.
When I found out that Tom Myers, author of Anatomy Trains, I mean, who knows more than that guy about anything? And Dr. Robert Schleip, who spoke with us, remember at the Barefoot Summit?
Yeah.
Schleip, we couldn't see him, but we could hear him. I mean, they are endorsers of the book. I want to explore that more. But we have to wrap up pretty soon, folks. I don't have anything more to say, but I'm not just going to shut us off real quick. Russ, what else you got?
You want me to do the hip flexor stretch? I could do the standing version.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I do standing and kneeling too. I love kneeling is probably my favorite one, but standing is good too. do both.
Well, there's actually, from kneeling too, you could like do it several ways. And by the way, getting into this position is a good way to detect instability. So my feet aren't together, but if you get in a position where both legs are completely aligned, this foot is in front of this thigh, and I try to stabilize. I'm doing this purposely. I have a bad hip. I don't feel so stable. You see me wobbling. And if I go to the other one.
Yeah, so with that one of
better.
the things that I used to have trouble with, and then I found out later why, when I understood things more, although I love that and I can do it now, if you don't be careful, like especially when you do the posterior pelvic tilt and rock under, that pushes the femur head forward in the acetabulum, so it can wear down, very slightly maybe, but if you do it every day for, years, it can wear down some of the cartilage, which will mean that the acetabulum femur head, well, the femur head's not as secure in there. Basically, it's just it's another way of wearing down the hip, except when you do that kneeling thing and maybe move forward very slightly, but fire up the same side glute, you just are now pulling back the femur head into the socket better so that you don't risk that damage.
Okay.
Same thing with the standing, except with the standing, it's more joints are involved, but it's very effective.
Okay, so here I'm stretching, my left leg is forward, the one that's bent here. That means I'm stretching my right hip. So this is what's going into stretch. Now to enhance this stretch a little, you could put your arm in the air and bend towards the leg that's forward. And that causes an additional stretch. That's because the muscle you're stretching, the psoas, it's got a couple of actions. One, it flexes and extends the hip, but it's also responsible for a little bit for this lateral flexion. So if you flex the opposite way, if you bend the opposite way, and put that muscle, it helps put that muscle into stretch a little bit more, just in a different direction. So you can do this exact same thing from a standing position too. So you just put one foot forward. And if you want to try to get a little bit, you should try to get a lean going forward. If you want, you could grab onto a doorway to give yourself a little bit of balance, or hold on to a chair where the front leg is. But anyway, you try to keep your torso upright and feel a nice stretch here. And like Karl said, tighten up this glute and you should feel a stretch a little bit more, because that reciprocal action we talked about, where one end is flexed, the other will relax. So we tighten up this glute, and then you can do this again. Next week we could go over another hip stretch called the couch stretch, where you could show you how to use a couch to stretch your quad. Cool. I love that stretch. I learned that one from Kelly Starrett.
That's cool. So just a couple things. I'll just make comments, and no, they're not criticisms whatsoever. There are times when I like the standing stretch better for the hip flexor because, I don't know, it just feels better at the moment. There are more joints involved, so it's a little more difficult to specifically isolate things. I mean, if you really get scientific about it, but the vocabulary terminology escapes me right now. But when you fire up the glute on the side you're stretching of the hip flexor, is that the reciprocal inhibition?
Yeah.
Because it's sending neural drive to the front. It's like that squeezing of the glute sends the neural drive to the hip flexor complex, telling it to like chill out. So it really helps not only fire up the glute, but it also helps to chill out the flexor, so you get a little better stretch out of it.
Yeah, I think the bad inhibition is called altered reciprocal inhibition or something like that. And then just the normal one that's helpful in that stretch, I guess, is just called reciprocal inhibition. I think that's the terminology.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we'll plan ahead for next week. I'll do a better job being prepared. And my book is done by then. Just got to get the cover done. the cover's the last thing to go. I have some things to work out, and Jane, I'll be calling you in like
All right.
10 minutes on my way down to the shop.
Parkinson's Awareness
gonna help
Month.
me.
Get active, people. Check out what's out there on the internet. Share things with your friends. Donate to charities. Just a little plug. Sales as far as charities. I like the variety between helping people, get medications who don't, or access to services, balanced with, research. A lot of people just donate to, one or the other, but it's good that we find a cure, so the research is good, but it's also good that people who are living without medication can get the medication, so they're not like in a frozen state. We don't know how much we appreciate in places like the United States where we could have, where
I'd say my foundation,
Parkinson's.
Parkinson's Global Project, we're up to really sending out many, many thousands of dollars over the past year. We really started sending out in June last year because I had a lot of expenses to pay for with other things, getting the book done and this and that, because all proceeds from book go to the foundation. I just got my Amazon deposits today, so now I have more money in the foundation account, my royalties. So now we're going to help fund some things for some people. But just to give you an example, folks, $15 a month. That sound like a commercial here, but it is $15 a month. $180 is what I've sent to one particular individual in Mexico. That's all this lady needs to get the levodopa she needs, which 3 days from the day that she received the first $15, she got her 3 days from when she took the first med, she was actually able to walk again. That's a big deal. $15 made this person walk because she could have the pills. So we have a system. I have a little kind of like a escrow person down there who I know very well and I trust, and she manages the funds for Monterrey, Mexico, and another person in another city. But the bottom line is, man, a little bit can go a long freaking ways, and Russ, you've helped so many people, and
Uganda too. Yeah, we got.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So if you're looking for a charity, send me a note. I have one, and we are mostly helping individuals. The next donation coming up after Alfredo's mountain climb one, which is going out this week, we've achieved our goal, is Parkinson, Oaxaca. Money's going there. They have nothing, but they're going to have stuff, and a little goes a long way. So if you want to donate and help specific entities, contact me. I'll send you a link, and we can hook you up. All right, folks, it's vaccine shot number 2 for me. It's 11:14. I can be there by 11:30. I want to get there before the lunch hour, because last time for the first dose, I was in line forever, but it was exciting at the same time. Russ, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it very much.
Be well, everyone. Keep moving. See you next week.
Keep moving, keep learning, and buy the book, The Molecule of More, because you will not forget it. And if the book's out of your budget, I get it. Go and look up The Molecule of More on YouTube. You'll find interviews with Lieberman, and his co-author sometimes is on some of these. He's fun, he's funny, he's engaging, he's entertaining, and the stuff is relevant to all of us. It's in some way, all of us. And be fearless.
Fearless.
Boy, I feel better than I did an hour ago.
Limitless.
Yay. Thanks, man.
Take care.
We'll see you back here, same bat time, same bat channel next Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Neuro Bros Show, brain cell number 1, number 2. We out. See you later. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you, Russ.
Bye-bye.